your name, we talked about that infamous case in Hong Kong. Your name was listed as a co-conspirator in Jimmy Lai's trial.
Yeah.
When you found out that you were listed as a co-conspirator, what was your reaction? Did you laugh it off, or was there a moment where you realized just how far Beijing was willing to go?
I love this question because a lot of the time when people get sanctioned and stuff like this happens, they say, it's a badge of honor. And I don't have that reaction. I think it's just sad. I think it's a sorry state of affairs that China has to be ruled by a party like this, and that the only way that they can deal with their deep insecurities and desperation for control is to victimize foreigners in that way, in these bizarre, spurious namings in cases or through sanctions. The Jimmy Lai stuff is, like, I can't overstate how ludicrous it is. So I barely know Jimmy Lai. I'd love to know him better. I had dinner with him twice. Other people there every time. And I got his number and exchanged a few texts. And my texts were pretty much always me sending him a press release when I was like sending a press release to lots of other people saying, hey, do something with this press release. Anyway, in his trial, all of this stuff is being read out, and the prosecution are like, this is the really terrible material here, which really shows how deeply embedded you were in IPAC. And I'm like, Jimmy Lai had nothing, not a thing to do with IPAC, nothing at all. You know, most of the time he didn't respond to my messages. There was one where I said, please RT, and he responds, what's RT?
Yeah, what is RT?
Retweet.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
It's like, what's RT? And I'm like, it's retweet. And this is being read out in court. This is how completely mad the Hong Kong situation is. So there's a part of me that wants to laugh it off, and there's a part of me that wants to go like, oh, you know.
Badge of honor.
Badge of honor. But the reality is, it's extremely sad. You know, unless things change, Jimmy Lai will die in jail. He hasn't done anything wrong. We have been used as spurious accomplices in all of that. The saddest part of the story for me is that in order to try to pin IPAC on Jimmy, they had to use a guy called Andy Lee, who you might not have heard of, but he was one of the 12 Hong Kongers who tried to escape to Taiwan. They caught that boat in Chinese waters, took them to Shenzhen, and Andy was mistreated in prison there.
They confiscated all his belongings, including his phone, and they mistreated him. Mistreating being, please use your imagination. I've heard you mention his name in one of the podcast interviews that you did. Do you know where he is right now?
Yeah, he's in prison in Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. I find this difficult to talk about because I feel so sad for Andy. What happened to him was completely unfair and awful. You've got to imagine, like, there were some other people in that boat who may have actually done things wrong, or at least that other people would look at and understand in the context of resistance. But Andy was completely non-violent. All he ever did was try to encourage others, gave his time to everybody. He ended up, it seems, suffering worse than anybody in prison because of his association with international groups. And what they did with Andy is they tried to get him to become, well, he was a prosecution witness for Jimmy Lai. And it's just like, it's all made up. Like, so they also named my colleague, my Japan director, Shiori Kano. Shiori never ever met Jimmy Lai, ever. They also named Bill Browder. Bill Browder had never even heard of Jimmy Lai, and then gets named as a co-conspirator. Like, honestly, and it's only because Andy had copied them into an email because we were setting something up for some Japanese lawmakers. So that just shows you how ludicrous the thing is.
People in Taiwan, like me, like a lot of people in Taiwan, we know not to travel. Like, we will never like go to Hong Kong like ever again, just because it's not safe. We don't even fly Cathay because I think it's like Hong Kong owner operated.
It is.
And so, so being on that aircraft carrier, like, not aircraft, I'm sorry, being on that aircraft, it's just we're just exposed. And I thought it was just us, you know, the renegade Taiwanese people. I didn't realize even for a British MP, you would be exposed so greatly as well.
So the problem is that the UK government can't do a great deal about it if something goes wrong.
Really?
Yeah, so they can do, well, look at Jimmy Lai. He's a British citizen. Have they succeeded in getting Jimmy Lai out? No. He's been a priority, so-called, for the UK government for years. And what have they managed to do to make his treatment better? It doesn't say much for the weight and power of the UK government. So if there were a third country where the relationship with China was such that they might enable the hounding of other people, then I wouldn't put it past them. We know that China has misused Interpol to go after various people. It's possible. However, it's not likely. Yeah? So one of the countries that has an extradition agreement with China is France. I've been to France. There's not going to be a problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to happen. And it would be such a massive escalation if they were to do it, that it would be a very stupid thing to do. So I enjoy protections that dissidents don't have. You shouldn't compare me with those guys. Those guys are really exposed, and this law is targeting them more than it's targeting people like me. That's what's worrying about it. Governments have not done a good job in standing up for those people who are particularly exposed because of this kind of transnational repression.
Is the UK government doing a good job?
I don't think so, no. I think that we've gone backwards on China. I think that even though there is a parliamentary consensus on China, and that's gone in the right direction, the government is in a different place. And that's partly because it was designed by some people from the golden era of relations with China, so like 15 years ago. But our policy is not very realistic in the sense that we're not really defending UK resilience, we're not preparing for possible escalation in cross-strait tensions, we're very dependent. All of these kinds of questions we're not handling right, in my view.
I remember one of the, Mike Pompeo, he gave a couple of speeches on China before Trump left office.
Yeah.
And one of those speeches just really stuck with me. He mentioned that in the golden era, people thought it was or even before that, people thought it was a great idea to engage with China. So China would get a chance to see what, capitalism is not all that bad, and we get to mingle, and then maybe our ideas of democracy would trickle down to China. It didn't happen.
Of course.
What happened was vice versa. China exported its ludicrous ideas, its communism in different forms to overseas, and it just shows how naive sometimes people's thinking can be when they write policies about China.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's right. I think the problem is that we don't know enough about China, particularly in the West. We talk about this as the China capabilities problem. Like, not enough people have Chinese, not enough people understand the culture, certainly not the political culture, which is very difficult to read. We really don't have much in common in terms of our political cultures there. I'll give you an example about this. It's kind of funny. So have you been following this China mega embassy controversy in the UK?
Yes, for quite some time now.
Right. So
Wait, it is getting built, right? Is it not?
No, we're going to stop it. Yeah, don't worry about that. I'm making a prediction here. We will stop it. So we are currently suing the UK government over that decision.
Right.
And I think we're going to win. But to the point about the political cultures, it's kind of funny. So the Chinese side, and I'm talking like Wang Yi himself, he thought
my favorite guy,
that the UK was just lying about the fact that we had processes to follow in order to approve the embassy. The Chinese side is like, you're ministers for a reason, can't you just do this? And our side is like, no, the way that UK planning law works is it's got to go to Tower Hamlets Council first, and it's got to do this, it's got to do that. So the Chinese side was growing progressively more and more frustrated because the notion that you would have checks and balances and other processes to go through is really alien to ministerial CCP culture.
Yep. Can you just make things happen?
You just make things happen. That's why you're a minister, But they actually thought that we weren't telling the truth about the processes. They thought that we just wanted to lead them on a dance about this embassy for years, So it's one of the reasons that it became such a tense diplomatic issue. And so very often there's not a huge amount of read across. We don't understand. And what that leads to is really bad China policy making. the real experts who are steeped in understanding about the history and development of the Chinese Communist Party would have told you back in 2001 what was going to happen, very clearly. Taiwanese would have told you what was going to happen. But we all fell for it. We all went with it. And it was a disastrous mistake.
Now that you mentioned Taiwan, and this which I don't need to explain Taiwanese political system to anyone watching. You're probably Taiwanese. Now that we're talking about Taiwan, both Taiwan's Democratic Progressive Party and Taiwan's People Party have joined IPAC.
Yep.
Yet Taiwan's largest opposition party, the Kuomintang, remains notably absent. When Legislative Yuan President Han Kuo-yu led a cross-party delegation to the United Kingdom, you revealed that IPAC actually made several attempts to try to arrange a meeting with him in London, but those efforts were ultimately declined. And you've also said that IPAC invited the KMT to attend its annual summit on 3 separate occasions, and never once did you receive a response. Was that all true, what I said?
Pretty much, yeah.
What do you think explains the Kuomintang's reluctance to engage with IPAC?
So I think what I'd say, first of all, and it's important to underline this, I don't have any skin in the game here, in the sense that I don't vote for any of these people.
Well,
I'm not Taiwanese. I would be very open to discussions with the KMT. That's always been our position, and I've worked pretty hard in order to try to bring that about. I want to have those discussions. And the reason we want to have those discussions is that the work that IPAC is doing internationally is mainly on the basis of other countries' interests, because people are really worried about this region. But we can't do that work accurately unless we're sure that what we're doing reflects the will of the people here. Where I've really struggled with the KMT is that these guys, they just don't seem to like me very much.
I wonder why.
But I do wonder why. Because, so the summit's a good example. When we were organizing this summit in Taipei, quite a big deal. It was the largest group of international lawmakers that's ever come here. And I wanted to make sure that the legislative yuan was properly represented.
Of course.
So I started talking to the KMT, what must have been 6 months at least before it happened. They ghosted me. So then I wrote a letter to the president of the legislative yuan, Han Kuo-yu, and I said, hey, why don't you nominate a group, a cross-party group, whoever you want, I don't care, and send them to our summit.
As long as your presence here is...
Yeah, please go for it. No response. So then I asked the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, MOFA, invite every member of the legislative yuan to our summit. They did. Not one single response from the KMT. So the thing that really, that's one thing, but the thing that was bad was that when the summit happened, the media then came and said to the KMT, are you boycotting this? And they said we weren't invited. And all I would say about that is that...
What was the response? We didn't know about this?
They said we were not invited. Okay, now I have put more effort into inviting the KMT than any other political party in the world, right? It wasn't correct, it wasn't accurate. So I found myself looking at that and thinking, okay, my struggle in doing this work is that I need to be able to speak to people candidly and honestly about challenges that we all face. That's my job, basically. If people are not going to be honest to me, I've got a real problem. I'm wanting to be able to talk to these guys. I don't care if they disagree with me or even disagree with IPAC. I don't even determine the whole of IPAC's policy. It's a consensus thing. But my network comprises the politicians who are most active on Taiwan around the world. So you should be talking to us. It makes a lot of sense.
Is it rude and is it uncommon for someone to just ghost you like that?
Yeah, it's never happened to me.
Because normally we'd be like, I'm sorry, but we decline your invitation because of scheduling conflict. They would make up an excuse for not being there, but they would just ghost you.
So people often come back saying, I can't make it.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get that a lot.
No.
But no, so, I invited one of our US co-chairs, Senator Merkley, Democrat, to something recently, and very elegant note back, as you'd expect when you get a formal invitation to something, saying, I'm really sorry, I can't make it. No response at all is very unusual, but I could forgive that. The thing that I find difficult is saying, then you were not invited, because that's just false.
That's just lying, I'm sorry.
Well, and I want to be careful, because I don't want to throw around insults at people, but at the same time, I do think that, you know, your listeners have a right to know. There is an international network which is kind of like slogging it out to do what it can to help Taiwan. It's really working away. And I've never been treated like that by any other political party in the world. Never. So all I would say is, I'm here, I'm open to meet, delighted to meet. We're getting on very well with the TPP, by the way. And I really hope that someone in the KMT sees sense and is like, oh yeah, maybe we should be speaking to those guys.